right, welcome to your work week, folks. It is a Tuesday, not a Monday. It feels like a Monday, but it is not. I assure you of that. Coming off a long weekend, of course, and a lot of haze in the air, and that's from wildfires, I believe, in the Newfoundland area. And let's just hope that we don't have any of these issues here in our fine province with conditions bone tinder dry out there. It's just unbelievably dry. Everybody knows this. We talked to Alistair Alders about it on Friday, of course. The drought conditions and the forests are just so dry. And a lot of people have concern about their wells, of course, and water levels, and the lakes are down. It's just it's so noticeable, folks. Everywhere you go, you can just see the lake levels are just so far down. It's kind of scary, actually. I'm not sure empirically how much evidence there is based on historical trends, but it seems to me that anecdotally, anyway, as far as the times that I've been around, these are the lowest the levels have been. The lake levels, and streams are it's just so tinder dry out there. And of course, Nova Scotia has a burn ban in province-wide and across the board until October 15th. And that means campfires, any type of fire, no burning at all. And I've had some people call the show last week complaining about that, saying that this is an overreach. Of course, the maximum fine is $25,000, and some people feel that's far too punitive. However, when you think about what's at risk, I can see why the provincial government is erring on the side of caution. Look, if people want to have, if you want to sit around and roast marshmallows or hot dogs or whatever, you can do that with a barbecue or a propane table or whatever. There are alternatives, folks. Look, I can see erring on the side of caution as being something that is prudent at this time, I would dare say. So burn ban, of course, is in place, and again, I think that this is something that you can talk about if you like when we open the phone lines. Is it justified? Is it something that you support? We will open the phone lines between 11 and 12 today. No Rob Thacker. Rob Thacker is away, so no science files today. So we've got some other things scheduled, of course. But like every day, we open the phone lines to find out what is on your mind. And I'm sure that some of you might want to talk about the fact that bike lanes are back in the news cycle. Morris Street and a proposed bike lane will be back before a council as they're meeting as we speak. A lot has happened since the last time the councillors debated the thorny issue. Back on July 8th, council voted 13-4 in favor of a plan that would see the lane installed and the street converted to a one-way. How things have changed, though, folks. Since then, the Premier has weighed in on the issue, warning that his government may be forced to intervene if council proceeds. He argued that the move could worsen traffic congestion, pose public safety risks, and potentially impact operations at the port. And today, councillors will debate a motion in which city staff recommend the council rescind the July 8th decision. So now staff is telling council to rescind the motion or suggesting it. Of course, it ultimately falls upon council to do so. I find it interesting that now, after the backlash, staff has had an epiphany or a come to Jesus moment on the whole issue and deemed that, in fact, it's a bad idea after all. It's amazing how the goalposts change here, folks, as this gets punted back between staff and council. And with the province involved as well. And the whole thing is really becoming, and it already has become, a complete disaster, in my opinion, this whole file. And it really does hurt the credibility of council and the brand of council. Last week, Tony Mancini said that he's concerned that council's brand has been hurt with backbiting and infighting between the mayor and, of course, as mentioned, the premier's involved. And look, I think that's legitimate. The brand of council has been impacted, and rightfully so. I mean, this whole file has been absolutely mismanaged. It all started, of course, way back when under the Mike Savage years. And originally it was supposed to be $25 million or so. And the sales pitch, of course, was always, look, it's mostly federal money, so why not take the federal money? Since then, the price has ballooned to $90+ million. I would suggest probably well over $100 million when all is said and done. And none of those overages are covered by any other level of government other than the municipality. And again, add this type of situation into changing this street into one way, and then now the plans have been reversed, or it appears they'll be reversed. The province is going to get involved. I mean, this has become a gong show, folks. This whole thing has become an absolute gong show. It's actually an embarrassment for the city, in my opinion. And when you think about that, how badly this file has been mismanaged, how can we assume that other files much larger have not been mismanaged, like the Windsor Street Exchange and other massive infrastructure projects and long-term planning for the city and the municipality? It's hard to really have confidence and faith in council and staff and who's running the show. These are questions that I think need to be answered. And Mayor Andy Fillmore will join the show on Thursday. He'll be here in studio between 10 and 11, so I'm sure that many of you will want to call in and ask him questions, as I'm sure that I've got a lot of questions for the mayor. So I look forward to that opportunity to chat with him and to take your calls and to get some of these things addressed, some of these big questions addressed. It doesn't have to just be about bike lanes, of course, but that is something that we will certainly discuss. And we'll discuss it today when we open the phone lines between 11 and 12, as mentioned. Get some other things as well in the pile, and hope to hear from many of you. I'd like to thank Vanessa Van Ness on the other side of the glass, the control board, doing a fine job, as always. All right, now joining me for a chat is Nancy Robinson, the Digby and Area Housing Coalition Society's Coalition Chair. Nancy, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time.
Hello, Tom. Thank you.
All right. So I saw a story recently on the CBC website, Digby Affordable Housing Project on hold as federal funds dry up. And tell us about what's going on here. Bring us up to date on the latest here.
Yes. Well, we were all set to. We had a schedule to demolish the old Siesta Motel, which is near Digby, and start building in May, maybe the middle of June, and go to tender then. And so the election was called, of course, the federal election, and then everything was on hold. So we have the provincial funding has been pretty well established, but for the CMHC, the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, that's essential funding for nonprofits who are doing housing, but you have to go through their triage. And even though they've been kind of with us all along, and they know the project, you're not in until you're in, let's say. So they were in caretaker mode, and then after the election, we were told that we could still, present the project, which we had done. We were almost there. They just had a few questions that they had sent back to us, and then we were told the funds were depleted. So the portal's open, we would be assessed, but there are no more funds in it. And we kind of thought, well, that would be topped up fairly soon. So it would only logical in the middle of a national housing crisis, which hasn't gone away yet. So there we were, as kind of stymied. Yes, there we are.
Okay, so how much money have you raised so far? $300,000 so you secured to this point so far?
Oh, yes, that is a number, 300,000, a bit more, to do the planning, pre-development, the architectural plans, the engineering, the studies, to get to the point where we have 100% drawings for the whole building and 100% cost estimate, so that those plans would be given to the builder so that they can go to tender. So that takes 2 to 3 years to do, and we have all those plans here.
Okay, so the $11.2 million project was construction ready, but the federal funds just didn't arrive. That's where we're at right now?
That's where we're at. It's turned out to be 34 units, studio and 1 bedroom, and 3 stories, and it turned out to be an $11.2 million project. And so the federal part is, it's a combination of a forgivable loan and a reimbursable, a loan that will become our mortgage.
Okay, so the mortgage would be through CMHC. Is that correct?
Yes. So it's a two parts. So we could still get the mortgage part, but the part that's $3 million, the part that is called the forgivable loan, so that we would get and condition, as long as we met the conditions of the contract, right?
Okay, so where are we now? Is it pending, or what's the very latest when it comes to this?
Well, that's the problem is that nobody really knows. I mean, we have a consultant who works with us with the CMHC, but even they don't know. So nobody knows if it will be topped up, if it will be refunded, if it will continue. I think Mr. Carney has been talking about having a new way of doing housing, community housing across the country. And certainly I agree with him. The system, the way it is very it's slow, cumbersome, and we do need something new. But I said, as grandmotherly advice, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? We need to continue the old system because we rely on it, and until the new one is up and running and really working. So I think it's just incredible to me. I get more stymied, incredulous, and now I'm getting annoyed that this money is not there. We need just under $3 million, and I know there's so many other things on the plate of the federal ministers with everything going on in the world. However, it's still very important that we house our people, and Digby is desperate as anywhere else, and perhaps even more desperate.
Okay, so the $3 million would be then, and then the remainder would be be funded through a mortgage. Is that correct?
Yes. Right now, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but part of it would be about another $2 million, 1.8, I think, would be a mortgage, and then from the provincial government, we get the rest of the funding up to $11.2 million. Right.
Okay, so the provincial government's committed to that.
Oh yes, they've been with us all along, and we're in their budget.
All right, so the only thing that you're waiting for are these federal dollars, these $3 million roughly or so.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, and in the meantime, you're incurring monthly costs, is that correct?
Yes, unfortunately, we have a mortgage ourselves, which is $2,600 a month. It's very onerous for a nonprofit to carry. We've managed up to now, but we're doing some big-time fundraising now to be able to continue, because that was supposed to be paid off with the first draw from CMHC. And then, so we were waiting for that. Yes.
All right. And the provincial government, how long will they keep the offer open?
Oh, they want to see this happen. So I think that would be, barring any unforeseen circumstances, they're with us.
Okay. So 34 units in all. And how much, again, tell us more about the units themselves. What are the plans?
Yes, it's, well, the motel is kind of on a hill, so we're taking advantage of the fact that we can have, 14 studios, 13 one-bedrooms, and 1 two-bedroom, and we'll have our offices there, and it will be in such a way that you can come in off the back street, First Avenue, right into the second floor. So we don't need an elevator, and we plan to. There's quite a bit of space, so we have planned to have a community garden, and a community space for people to. So it won't be just warehousing people, but it'll be creating community.
All right.
Units are.
Units, I think. Go ahead.
The units I think are a little small, but they're all a little small these days, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, and the need is great, right? You're talking. Some people assume small town Nova Scotia wouldn't have a need like this, but that's not the case, right?
No, it's desperate, and they've recently done another study. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what's happening when you don't have agencies to do the counts. But we had recently surveys done, and we know that there are a lot of people on the street living in their cars, even going to jobs who are in their cars. And not living on the street so much, but in tents. And the caseload for one of the housing workers for over a year has been 28, 30 people. And she can't find places for them to go. So it's kind of, and so they're going to hire another housing worker. It's, but then there are a lot of people who are living in substandard housing. The core housing rate for Digby town itself is 34%, which is very high. That means 34% of the households are living in inadequate housing. Either it's too small for them, it needs repair, has a lot of mold. We talk about that a lot, or it's too expensive. Just recently, I talked to somebody who called me and said she's being renovicted. So we're trying to sort that out, because that means the landlord has not given proper notice. But they've been offered money to leave, but she said there's nowhere to go. Yeah, absolutely nowhere. Even the poorest, cheapest apartments, they're full. So it's very desperate. And we know a lot of seniors. For example, there was a senior who came when we first started. We thought we'd be up and running sooner, who was just going to move into her friend's trailer on her property with no running water. That was 3 years ago. They've been waiting 3 years for this. And now I met her about a month ago, and she said she's still in that trailer, no running water. And these are people that are just not having a quality of life. They're on hold until they get something decent to live in.
And of course, the concern I would also think as time goes on, the costs are going to go up for building, right? And that might impact your budget.
I'm wondering what's going to happen. We have a consulting company who's kind of leading us through this, a very good consulting company. So, yes, fortunately, we have some help there, but that's what I'm foreseeing. That exactly. It's very worrisome. I should say about the people waiting. There's a lot of young people couch surfing as well, that want to start their careers and and a lot of people that want to move in to Digby and stay, and they leave because there's no place to live. So it's desperate.
What's your local MP said about all of this, if anything?
Well, our MP is Chris D'Antonamo. He actually came to see me, and he's putting pressure through his shadow housing minister, Scott Aitchison, and we've actually written all the MPs from Nova Scotia as well as the housing minister, Gregor Robertson. But we got it. This kind of landed in us at the end of this session, when they all went on a break. So in June, we tried to make contacts in June, but it was at kind of the end of the parliamentary session.
Right. Okay, Nancy, listen, I appreciate your time, and good luck with all of this, and let's follow up with it. Thanks for doing this today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's wonderful.
All right, take care. Nancy Robinson, the Digby and Area Housing Coalition, the Society Coalition Chair. A sweet advantage. You have tariffs give Canadian chocolatiers an opportunity. That when we come back. All right, I saw this story recently on our website. Actually on the CTV website. U.S. tariffs on cocoa creates more opportunity for chocolate makers in Canada. Joining us to talk about all this is Tarek Hadhad, CEO of Peace by Chocolate. Tarek, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time, of course.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for having me.
All right, indeed. So tell us about why tariffs are actually improving your situation.
Well, actually, it's a very sweet advantage, as you said. This is something that we did not expect. So just to take you back in what happened in the U.S., the administration, they put tariffs on importing cocoa from outside of the country. And, cocoa doesn't grow in the U.S. It doesn't grow in Canada. The closest it grew to us, actually, it's Mexico. So the U.S. put tariffs on importing cocoa from any country inside the United States, and that basically affected all U.S. manufacturers because they had to pay a lot without being able to increase their prices. Because what has been happening since last year is that there was already a massive spike in cocoa prices because of shortage of supply coming from Ghana and the Ivory Coast. So that basically put the U.S. manufacturers at a disadvantage to produce chocolate. While here in Canada, thankfully that, we did not put tariffs on importing cocoa. So for us, it was kind of, an advantage over U.S. manufacturers where, we needed to increase the cost of our products because of the cocoa prices increase. However, because the tariffs were not implemented on our raw materials, so that basically helped us to maintain our margins without needing to increase the prices even further. So because of that, the U.S. manufacturers, they started reaching out to Canadian companies to make the product for them and ship it back to the United States. And that basically kind of put Canadian manufacturers in a position where we can compete with U.S. in the U.S. market, and also using our factories, our labor, our supply chain right here in Canada to make the product and also ship it in the United States. Which actually, this is something that never happened before. It was the other way around. As for a lot of complexities in our industry, the U.S. had an advantage for so long at this, but I do not believe actually that the U.S. administration, they had forecasted that this is going to backfire at them while at the time that they put these tariffs in. So right now here in Canada, I'm hearing from many of my friends, other CEOs of chocolate manufacturing companies in Ontario, in Quebec, across Canada, that this is something that they have seen, on the rise since the beginning of 2025, and I think the trend is here to continue.
So how much capacity do you have to divert or to produce or to pick up the overage here?
Now, this is the other part of the problem, is that because we did not really anticipate this, we did not know at the beginning of 2025 that this was going to happen. So we were already almost at maximum capacity to fill the Canadian market, which, we still have a massive room to fill. Also, the demand for our products in Canada itself has, I would say, probably doubled since last year, inside the country. The demand is there, the attention to Canadian companies is there, everyone in Canada is looking to make sure that they are supporting Canadian businesses, because we believe that the successful one is the success for all. So since then, we have been trying to catch up. We've been trying to fulfill as many of the orders that we're receiving as possible, while at the same time focusing on increasing our footprint and our distribution across Canada. So right now, our products are available in almost 1,500 locations across Canada. We are almost in every major retailer across the Maritimes and across the country, and we still have actually a very long way to go to secure some permanent listings in some of those locations. So before really going global, we have been trying our best to fulfill all of this national demand. We also have our e-commerce platform, which is the largest in Atlantic Canada. We also have our own retail network that started right here in Antigonish and also in Halifax, and it's growing from there. So the distribution model that we are following, actually, it's allowing us to be flexible and meet the moment, while also supplying Canadians that they are looking for Canadian-made products. Now, when it comes to exporting, we started our export plans since 2020, even before the pandemic, and then it was delayed for a few years. And the U.S., in fact, actually was one of our biggest markets. We had a lot of attention coming from the U.S. even before the tariffs were put in 2025. So that actually kind of put us in a place where we needed to think globally, but also start thinking about expanding our capacity, which is actually very tough. We operate in Antigonish. We are one of the largest employers right in the community, and we have expanded our factory 3 times since 2019. And I think it's going to take us a little bit more, to expand this 4th time, but it is very much worth it. We believe in our community. We believe in our product. We believe in our people. We believe in what we're trying to spread peace through every chocolate product that we make and through every message that we're trying to spread. and that is actually because we have an affection for Canadian manufacturing. We love making stuff here, and the headquarters for our company will always be in Antigonish. However, when it comes to this demand that is increasing, it's kind of challenging for us to meet, all of this demand, because it takes time to build capacity in manufacturing. And at the same time, I really believe that, we're going to get a clearer picture over the next few months in terms of where things are going to settle. Now, our products are exempt under the USMCA agreement, so we do not have to worry about, the tariffs across the border. However, we are at a disadvantage because, we get some of our supplies that we can't get from anywhere here in Canada. We get it globally. So I really hope that when we are thinking about importing some of the raw materials that affect our industry, that we are thinking long term, and we do not really get pulled into this reactive strategy, when it comes to tariffs. So in summary, for our scaling, for our capacity building, it's actually on top of mind for our company, for our board. We are thinking about our fourth expansion coming to our factory soon, which we hope it's going to be ready in 2026, 2027.
Okay, Tarek, appreciate your time. Thanks so much. We'll do it again.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right, take care. Tarek Hadhad, CEO, Peace by Chocolate. Migrant workers expose government plan to slash their pay by up to $12,000 a year. That when we come back. Stacey Gomez is the Executive Director of the Centre for Migrant Workers' Rights here in Nova Scotia and joins me for a chat. Stacey, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
All right. So migrant workers expose government plan to slash their pay by up to $12,000 a year. Tell us about this.
Yes. So the Government of Canada has proposed changes for migrant workers in the agriculture and seafood processing sector. So the majority of migrant workers who come to Canada have closed work permits. That means that they're tied to one employer and they can't easily leave if there is a situation of abuse. The government says that they want to move to tying migrant workers to specific industries, the agriculture and seafood industry. And as part of that, they're considering massive deductions on workers' pay, over $1,000, as you mentioned.
All right. And how did this come to light? How did this information come to light?
Mm-hmm. So the last year, the government was criticized in a UN report. The temporary foreign worker program in Canada was called a breeding ground for contemporary forms of slavery. And so the government, has, had to react to that in some way. And so we're seeing that they've said, we want to move towards this new work permit that's specific to agriculture and seafood industry. As part of that process, they communicated to industry as well as to organizations like ours that these changes are coming. They said that they want feedback on these changes, and so that's how we heard about these changes.
Okay, and how far along is this a done deal, or where are we with it?
Mm-hmm. From our understanding, the government has decided that this change to this new work permit is going to come into effect, and they're getting feedback on just specific aspects of it, like around housing, transportation, deductions. So some of it has already been determined, but they're saying that some of it is still open for feedback. Okay, so how difficult will this make the lives of migrant workers financially? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would make a huge difference. So I want to share, our organization is part of the Migrant Rights Network. And as part of this network, we help to put together a report to amplify migrant worker voices about these changes. And this is based on survey responses and focus groups with over 500 migrant workers throughout Canada. And we here in Nova Scotia spoke to over 140 migrant workers about these changes. A lot of the migrant workers, none of them knew about these proposed changes. So we were the first ones to tell them about it. And we heard a range of concerns from migrant workers. So we're talking about new deductions that could be up to 30% of their pay for housing. And housing is currently part of the employment agreement for migrant agricultural workers that are coming to work in Canada. We've heard a lot of concerns around, poor quality housing that they're living in with rodent infestations. Typically, these are shared accommodations. And so workers are saying that it's really unfair to be, they're having this rollback in their employment agreement and being told that they might have to pay up to 30% of their wages for this poor quality housing. And also we heard from workers tell us that if these deductions come into place, they'll seriously reconsider whether it makes sense to come to Canada.
What percent now goes towards accommodations?
So for migrant agricultural workers in the Seasonal Agricultural Workers Program, housing is currently part of their employment agreement. So it's not an additional cost. They pay utilities, but they don't pay rent because it's part of their agreement. So that would be a massive change.
Okay, but might they potentially increase the pay in order to make up for the difference, or no?
Yeah, there's some talk of, market-based approach to wages, but there's no guarantee that wages are actually going to increase.
Well, that would, to me, would be, so it would go from not paying anything to 30% without an increase in pay. To me, that math doesn't look very good, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And we're talking about people that are typically making minimum wage. They're low-income earners.
Yeah. So what would be the incentive for anybody to want to do this type of work if this was the case? I mean, it economically doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what we're hearing from workers, that, they're going to have to think carefully about whether it makes sense for them to continue to come to work in Canada. It's difficult work that migrant workers do in Canada. They're not allowed to bring their families with them, typically when they come to work here in Nova Scotia. If you're a migrant worker, you typically don't have access to public health care coverage. So those are some of the realities of coming to work as a migrant worker in Canada and in Nova Scotia. And so, workers are saying it's becoming increasingly difficult.
All right. So who's pushing for these changes? Is this coming from industry? Who initiated this? Yeah,
that's an excellent question. And, from our perspective, the government wants to make it seem like they're taking some action. It sounds good on paper, but we know that in practice, there's going to be, all these challenges and just making it more difficult for workers. For sure, some of these proposed changes are more in favor of employers and not in favor of workers.
Are any of the changes in favor of workers?
From our analysis and from what we're hearing from workers, there's a lot of concern that the situation is actually going to get worse for workers. I think in the best case scenario, there's going to be like a negligible change in some areas, but that's we don't really see really major benefits for workers through these changes.
Yeah, absolutely not. And what about industry farmers themselves, or people who are the employers, or anybody speaking out against these changes from the employer side of things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll say, our perspective is more as a migrant worker rights organization, and we're part of this network of similar organizations across the country. And so, and we're directly in touch with workers, and our work is to amplify migrant worker voices around this. And so that's more, who we're hearing from directly.
But I just peripherally, you might have heard from somebody who might have been speaking out to say, I would think that somebody would have the foresight or the wherewithal to understand that you don't want to lose these workers, and if these types of changes force people not to come here and to do this type of work, then that could definitely impact the industry. And I just would think that there would be some people, some employers who would be speaking out against this. That's all.
Yeah, I haven't seen it personally, I would say.
Wow, interesting. Okay, Stacey, so we appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this today.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, take care. Stacey Gomez, Executive Director, Centre for Migrant Worker Rights, Nova Scotia. I saw this story on our website. New survey suggests more than half of Canadians believe they didn't have enough information or needed more to cast their ballot in the last federal election. We'll discuss this when we come back.
Next.
This story, a new survey suggests more than half of Canadians believe they didn't have enough information or needed more to cast their ballot in the last federal election. The Ipsos poll says 57% of respondents either believe they didn't have enough local news or could have used more to assess candidates back in April. Many respondents pointed to social media as among their most influential news sources, 14% specifically citing Facebook, even though the social media site banned news content in Canada. The think tank, the online survey of 1,000 Canadian residents was conducted July 11th to the 21st as part of a study by the Public Policy Forum on Access to Local News. The think tank concludes that a steady erosion of local news outlets leaves many Canadians wading through the toxic waters of social media. One of the report's co-authors and former columnist and writer and editor Tim Harper joins me to talk about all of this. Tim, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Todd.
All right. So why is this an important subject for people to consider here, in your opinion?
Well, first off, local news is a lifeline to a community, exclusive of election time. It's the way people learn of local sports teams or community events. It ties communities together, and there is less and less of that going on in this country. So we decided to take a look at what effect this has in election campaigns, and you very accurately laid out some of our findings. But overwhelmingly, we found that in communities that we were studying, people didn't really know anything about their local candidates. And, you know, unlike the U.S., where you can vote directly for the president, you know, we have a series of 338 local elections, essentially. Mm-hmm. And more and more Canadians are voting for local candidates they don't even know.
Okay, and the vacuum that is local media is pretty evident, and the hollowing out of local media has been going on for a very long time. And the fact that Facebook was not allowing the dissemination of a lot of news stories added to it. But what about I guess online publications and things like that? Are any of these filling the void or the vacuum at all, in your opinion?
Not necessarily in communities that we studied. Just so your listeners know, we studied Richmond, BC, Yellowknife, Vaughan, Ontario, Laval, Quebec, and Buena Vista in Newfoundland. What we found, particularly in Newfoundland, is where there is absolutely no local media in that community remaining. I mean, they would have access to the CBC, but they were still using Facebook. And you point out, I mean, news has been banned there. So what they thought they were getting as information about the election on Facebook was rumor, innuendo, bias, and in many cases just flat out fake news. So there have been quite an uptick in local online media, but certainly not enough to fill the void. And you're still getting largely just national news with very little local information in those communities we studied.
Yeah, monetizing news and in particular online news, that's the real trick, right? That is the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a challenge for everybody in the media, online, local, large, national. One thing that we recommended after our study was there's here in Ontario, the Progressive Conservative government has mandated that 25% of all government advertising should go to local media, and we're recommending that a program like that should be made national, because you're quite right to point out that these communities we studied, people were working very hard with very little resources to do their job, and without a steady stream of advertising, the situation is only going to get worse. And by the next election, I suspect some of the outlets that we studied won't be there anymore.
Wouldn't it stand to reason that somebody might see the opportunity and step in and recognize that there is a thirst for information, a thirst for good journalism, and or is that just not realistic? Is the business model of traditional media just simply done with at this stage?
Well, I've got a bias there. I spent almost 40 years in daily journalism, and you're right. You would think somebody would want to step in, but it's the cold, hard reality of financial results, and there is a dwindling readership, so that advertising is going to be cheaper and cheaper, and less of a boost to your outlet. I would love to think, Todd, that somebody would say, look at these poll results. People want local news. They want to know more about what's going on in their community. But that's a big ask to have somebody step in and keep things going when the reality is that they're going to be losing money, or they're going to end up doing what we've seen across the country, merging with other organizations, so that you're dropping brands, you're dropping names, and you're homogenizing your news coverage.
And there's so much noise online as well, right? It's just the whole sphere of what is news and what's opinion and what's credible. That also is being kind of at a crosshair as well, is it not? Like, what is opinion and what is news, I think, is important.
It is, and what is flat out misrepresentation or fabrication is important too. There seems to be a sense from people who know more about the effect of fake news more than I do, seem to think that if you don't have a base of awareness in your local community, or you don't have a basic awareness of the political landscape, you see something on your Facebook feed that you and I would know immediately is bogus. But if you don't have that grounding, you don't have that muscle memory, you're much more susceptible to looking at that and going, man, oh man, is Pierre Poilievre really going to do that? I mean, I can't believe Mark Carney said that, That's, and the less, as I say, muscle memory or awareness there is because of the lack of local news, it allows these toxic sites and this fabrication a very, very fertile ground to grow and grow and grow. And this wasn't as bad when it came to fake news as an election as some, including us, thought. So the flip side is that, among a large part of the population, there's more awareness about bogus sites and bogus news, and they can more easily detect it. But for a large portion of the population in Canada, they can't, and those are the targets.
And of course, AI and deep fakes and all that's added a lot to all this also, which is just, I mean, the chaos of online and what's real and what isn't is becoming. I'm out of the point where I don't believe anything I see online, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's probably a good policy. The AI that was used during the election was not very good, not very sophisticated. You know, you fake Jeffrey Epstein photos where he had 6 fingers, and they were easily detected. And there are people out there who are pushing back against this, and are Kevin Newman's former national TV correspondent, which many of your listeners will remember. He's established something called Get Fact, which is basically a pushback against fake and inaccurate news on whatever site. So there are people pushing back against this. But, you know, this is what we're up against. As AI becomes more refined, harder to detect the difference between reality and AI fakery. I don't know if we've got enough people on the ground trying to push back against this. And, you know, you've identified a very worrisome trend.
All right, Tim, appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this. Very interesting.
Thanks for having me, Todd. I appreciate it.
All right, take care. Tim Harper, former columnist, writer, and editor, and co-author of the report, which we were talking about. What is on your mind today? The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Back in the agenda at Council as we speak, discussing Morris Street and bike lanes. And look, the whole thing has just become an absolute gong show, in my humble opinion. I'll share some details with you and get your opinion. 902-405-6000, that or whatever else you've got in your mind when we come back. Taking your calls. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. What is on your mind today? Again, 902-405-6000. Give us a call. What would you like to get into today? 902-405-6000. We are in the dog days of summer, that's for sure, folks, with hot temperatures and dry conditions. And a burn ban, of course, which is province-wide, which was put into effect last week. Nova Scotia has brought in a province-wide burn ban due to the dry conditions, which I just mentioned. The provincial government says the ban on open fires will remain in place until October 15th, which is considered the end of wildfire season, or until conditions approved. The fine for violating the fire ban is $25,000. Some people last week called the show and felt as though that this is an overreach and had concerns that perhaps some campfire, some campgrounds might be impacted by this, and campfires. Look, folks, it's pretty evident to me that we need to err on the side of caution. I think that this is the appropriate decision. And look, we get it that it's nice to sit around a campfire. Everybody enjoys that, but look, the greater public safety is at play here, and I think that this is the appropriate decision. What are your thoughts on that, folks? You can comment on that or whatever else you'd like to get into. Again, 902-405-6000. And of course, bike lanes, and this is considered continues to dog this version of council and the mayor, who will be in studio here on Thursday, by the way, between 10 and 11, taking your calls, and we'll get his perspective on all of this. But look, right now, this is a divisive issue. It has council at odds with the mayor for the most part, and the province as well, and the premier. So you've got the premier, you've got a divided council, you've got a mayor who's looks like is going to be getting more powers through all of this, and the public, the cycling coalition. All types of moving parts here, folks. And Morris Street is front and center. A proposed bike lane will be back before council as they meet this morning. They're currently meeting right now. A lot has happened since the last time that the councilors debated the thorny issue. Back on July 8th, council voted 13-4 in favor of a plan that would see the lane installed and the street converted to one-way. Again, this was back on July 8th. And the plan was to convert Moore Street to a one-way street in order to accommodate a two-lane bike lane. Since then, the premier has weighed in on the issue, warning that his government may be forced to intervene if council proceeds. He argued the move could worsen traffic congestion, pose public safety risks, and potentially impact operations at the port. Today, councillors will debate and are debating a motion in which city staff recommends that council rescind that July 8th decision. So lo and behold, staff is on Friday issued a recommendation for council to consider to rescind the motion. The motion also calls for Mayor Andy Fillmore to respond to the Premier's comments, direct the CAO to initiate functional planning and public engagement for cycling infrastructure on Morris Street, and request a review of plans for the University Avenue portion of the bike lane network. Staff are also recommending a report exploring alternatives and cost-saving opportunities. So I guess the things to consider, folks, and that I'd like you to weigh in on and consider here and offer your opinion. Is it evident at this point this entire file has been a complete disaster, with a disconnect between staff and council, with too much influence from some, including cycling enthusiasts? And is it any wonder that the Premier has decided to step in and look? It's pretty evident that this entire thing is it's spiraled out of control. How damaging to HRM's brand has this whole fiasco caused? And how much faith do you have in council to run the city? How much faith can we have in the process when it comes to council and its processes? You have larger issues, of course. Windsor Street Exchange going on. You've got all types of infrastructure. You got huge decisions coming down the pike when it comes to the municipality. Yet on this file, it appears as though that they are adrift, and have definitely. Well, the results speak for themselves. 902-405-6000. What is on your mind today, folks? How much faith do you have in council? And how badly does this whole issue reflect on council? And is that fair? Perhaps you don't think that that's fair. Perhaps you think that it's a tough issue regardless. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Rob says this via email, says, from a political perspective, it would be unwise for council to comply in advance in the light of the Premier's threat to intervene on Morris Street. If they genuinely want to engage in the debate about whether the Premier should be intervening and municipal politics, it's important for them to allow him to actually pull the trigger. The alternative allows the Premier to claim that he merely expressed an opinion but didn't overturn municipal decisions. This will lead to similar threats on future decisions. This email from Mark says, I praise the Premier for inserting some common sense into this bike lane push by council. We as taxpayers need more accountability into our tax dollars and how they're being spent. We have thousands of Nova Scotians struggling with bills and the cost of living. Let's get real here. That comes from Mark. So what's your take on this, folks? Give us a call, 902-405-6000. We got open lines for you again, 902-405-6000. What should council do here, folks, when it comes to this? Should council listen to staff, which had a come to Jesus moment on Friday, apparently, recommending that council rescind this motion? What are your thoughts on this? Who's running the show here in HRM, folks? Is it staff? Is it council? Is it the mayor? And again, is it any wonder that the province and the mayor, Tim Houston, or the Premier rather, Tim Houston, has seen it necessary to reject and intervene in the municipal issues? 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Give us a call. What is on your mind? I'd like to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this, folks? Again, 902-405-6000. How bad has the HRM's brand been impacted by this? And by the way, before I go to the phones, bike lanes are a controversial issue, not only in this city, but in many cities right across the country, including Toronto and Ontario. And we know Doug Ford's been involved and is involved in bike lanes, and in Western Canada, in Calgary and Edmonton, and where bike lanes that have been built are there are plans in the works to tear them up to make way for road infrastructure because of, you guessed it, folks, perceived congestion and traffic congestion. due to a lack of road infrastructure. 902-405-6000. Ryan's giving us a call. Hello, Ryan.
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, so just to touch on the point where you're talking about like Edmonton and Calgary's bike lanes, of course, they have invested a lot of money, millions of dollars into the lanes out there, and are now proceeding to spend more money to rip them out of congested areas. I think that maybe a small fix, I know only got a short amount of time to talk to you, but maybe just moving those bike lanes to places around lakes, paving areas not in the city necessarily, but kind of meeting in the middle where the bike people are getting their lanes, just, you know, in places that permit it versus putting it in congested areas where we're already going to see detrimental traffic over the next 10 years of growth.
Yeah. Okay, Ryan. Appreciate the call.
No problem.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
902-405-6000. Gloria's giving us a call. Hello, Gloria.
Hi, Todd. Beautiful day again.
Yeah, for sure. I assumed you'd be watching council.
Oh, they're in camera. They haven't come out of in camera.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yes. Ever since they started this morning.
Right.
You know, there's so much secrecy. And I'm calling about the water department this morning, Todd. I can't believe how insulated the people who work for the water department and HRM and whole. You can no longer speak to a staff member. You know, I called yesterday. Our Sullivan's Pond is so dangerously low that we're worried about the geese, that the water could be, you know, contaminated. I called yesterday. The supervisor on duty, is that your drinking water? Now, he's on duty at the water department for the weekend. Mm-hmm. He thought Sullivan's Pond was drinking water.
Wow.
And that's fine. So we talked, and the poor guy, he tried. Mm-hmm. You know, he tried. And I said, well, listen, why don't you just give my number to a supervisor in the morning and have him call me? Oh, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. So that's fine. I said, thank you very much. I called this morning. I got another new Canadian. She didn't know Sullivan's Pond in a park. I said, which park? Anyway, I said, let me speak. No, they're all too busy doing other things. I'll take your message. I said, let me speak to Kendra McKenzie. You know, I know her. She's the CAO. Oh, no. It's unbelievable. And I got nowhere. So isn't that sad?
Yeah. It is sad.
You know, that's the kind of service or lack of service we're getting, Todd. And it's everywhere. You call HRM, they're all insulated. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get to speak to a staff member unless I still have an old phone book. So sometimes if they're still there, I can call them that way. But it's sad. And as for today, the CAO wrote to them and told them you better change your mind. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah, isn't it? I find that strange that staff all of a sudden has told them to direct them to not to.
You know what we're dealing with. A lot of the counselors today are clerks. They're clerks.
Yeah. So what do you mean? What do you mean they're clerks?
Well, they do what they're told to do, and they go by. You know, they're not out there listening to the people and hearing them and doing what the people want. That's very obvious. You know, you watch them every day and you see that. Very obvious what's going on. And it's funny, when I asked Becky Kent how much money had been spent, Bruce Frisco was talking about it the other night. Mm-hmm. He knew they'd spent. And now we hear they've already spent a lot of money on University Avenue, and they're going to change their plans.
Yeah, it makes you wonder who's actually in charge, right? Who's making the decisions here?
Oh, we've got the most dysfunctional crowd. And then I listen to Steve Murphy and I shake my head. We've got the most dysfunctional crowd ever. You know, they're like a little herd. They get together and Sam Austin says this and Becky Kent has to agree, and so does Laura White, so does Sean Cleary. Mm-hmm. You know, they don't think for themselves. And it's sad. And it's sad with the taxes everybody pays and the struggles that people are going through. And we have 200 cyclists telling us what to do.
Where did you come up with the number 200 cyclists?
Well, the number when they met at the coalition.
Yeah.
There were 200 and some members.
Yeah.
That's the crowd I'm speaking about, not the... I was out the other morning. I actually saw 2 bikes. But that's beside us. You know, we can't afford it. If we could afford it, great plan. If our streets were built for it, great plan. If we weren't closing businesses because of it, taking away parking from disabled, good plan. But all these things are happening, and nobody's shaking their head and paying any attention to it. So I don't know how it's going to get any better, even with the mayor getting stronger powers. I don't know how it's going to get any better.
Well, if the mayor gets stronger powers, then they'll simply that'll change the water in the beans, will it not? In a way.
Do you think when he's got to have so many votes?
Well, I suppose it depends. I suppose it depends on on what the legislation looks like, right?
Yeah, exactly. We don't know what it'll look like. But if it's said he needs a third of the votes, he doesn't have them now.
That's true.
So I just wonder what will happen. But I find it very sad, you know. When I was mayor, when the province came to us and said, when we went to the province, said we want the 107 bypass for our park because of the traffic and everything. They said it's not in our budget. We said, we will lend you the money. We loaned them the money, they put it through, and they paid us back the next year. You know, that's the way you should be working with the government, working together. We need that. But you know, I'm so frustrated with it all that, you know, you just want to close it all off and forget about it.
Right.
But I can't.
Yeah. Okay, Gloria, appreciate the call. Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks.
All right, you got 902-405-6000. Give us a call. What's on your mind today? Again, 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back.
Facts.
All right, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Jacob, hello.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm well, you?
Good, thanks. So just, you know, listening to all this discussion regarding bike lanes over the last number of months, because it's been going on for quite a while, it's, you know, I don't know that the Premier should be weighing in on these matters. It's a different level of government altogether, and I can only imagine his reaction if the federal government were to weigh in on provincial decisions. I'm not saying, you know, that the Premier doesn't have a say in certain things, because obviously the Port of Halifax, if it's going to be affected by the one on Moore Street, the bike lane on Moore Street, you know, that obviously has implications across the whole province, if not the region. But I got to say, like, I feel like this is more populism than anything, the same as Doug Ford did in Ontario.
What do you mean populist?
Well, I find that they're gravitating towards an issue that's something that's small in so many respects that has been villainized. I mean, we have traffic woes in this town. Bike lanes are not the only reason why we've got traffic woes. I mean, my family and I were caught in terrible traffic jams last Saturday. There wasn't a single bike lane along the entire stretch. It was because the bridge was down. Our transit system is not up to snuff, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not just bike lanes. I would say, you know, that the issue around the bike lanes has not been handled properly by the municipality. I feel like, you know, I don't know if proper consultation was really done in the downtown core in particular. If you look at it's like by the Scotia Bank Center, where there's a bike lane installed and they cut off the right yield lane that goes around Citadel Hill, like that has caused terrible traffic jams in the morning and in the evenings towards rush hour. So I'm not saying the city's done a fantastic job here by any means. And frankly, the new mayor, I don't know. I think we all had high hopes, and I don't, you know, the level of divisiveness between him and his own council, where he can't work with his own council, is.
Well, what do you mean? What do you mean? Why do you say can't work with? Because he doesn't agree with the majority council on bike lanes? Does that? Why can't he not have an opinion on it? The difference from the rest of council.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to suggest that he should not have an opinion on it. He absolutely should. He's the mayor. He won it pretty handily, if memory serves me correctly, last fall. You know, and he should have an opinion. I'm not saying he can't work with council, but this isn't the only decision or only matter, whatever, that like he has not been able to work with municipal council on, the rest of the council. And I'm not even sure if, the overtures from the province saying that, they're going to give him strong mayor powers is the right course of action either. I mean, we saw the last mayor was offered that and he turned it down because he thought, from all accounts, he could work with council, that he wouldn't need those strong mayoral powers to overrule. But I not to blabber on, but I would say that, I think the mayor has the best of intentions and he's listening to people. Councillors, I disagree with the former caller. I didn't quite catch it because I kind of was in and out. I'm not sure if it was former Dartmouth Mayor Gloria McCluskey or not. But I don't necessarily agree with if that was her, whomever it was, that the councillors are completely, inactive and not listening to their constituents. I don't think that's the case. I would say that, after living here for close to 30 years now in Halifax, that, which is the whole time that there's been a HRM, that like the council here, like all forms of government, need work. There's a level of there's not a real level of collegiality, I find, at the municipal level, and that's maybe the nature of it because it's more consensus government than like there's no partisanships involved, right? Yeah. But what I would say, and I don't mean to just bash the mayor, but at the same time, it's been almost a year since he's been elected, and there's been a lot of controversy between the mayor and the rest of the council, and that's really unfortunate. And I think that some of the bike lanes that have been installed have been poorly placed, not really consulted, not really done in a good way. I heard somebody previously talk about University Avenue. That's another good example, and along South Park Street in that area, taking away parking spots from those who are less able than others, or close to hospital parking down there at the QE2 or whatever. But what I'm saying is, like, the bike lanes are not the only villains here in the city. Like, we've got bigger problems. I wish that the council would focus on transit, costly as it might be, and working with what the provincial.
But Jacob, that's the point, right? That's one of the points is that instead of forging ahead and with the bike lanes and all this, then absolutely focus on transit, and there's not enough focus on transit, right?
Agreed, man. And look, the bike lanes. It's good to see active transportation. It is an old city. It is difficult to manufacture bike lanes in some streets that were made for horse and buggy. A couple hundred years ago. And it isn't Toronto. It isn't Calgary. It isn't Edmonton, where the population is there. I think that bikes are whatever. People want to use them in Halifax. Frankly, it's always been, in my opinion, a pretty dangerous city to drive your bicycle in. That's why the bike lanes themselves are supposed to help protect it. But I would say that I didn't disagree with the mayor when he said, this is nearly 4 times the original budget. I think it was $25 million and it ballooned up north of $90 million or something, right? So I didn't disagree when he said we need to have a look at that. Yeah. This isn't going right. But the transit in the city is what needs the focus. We've got 2 bridges that are constantly under construction, a downtown core, and a city that is growing like mad. And I do think that the focus needs to be on transit, like in terms of like bus systems. That's all. Yeah.
Okay, Jake. Appreciate your comments. Thanks for the call. Take care.
Thanks.
902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, taking your calls when it reaches 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Here's a story that was just posted to our website. A provincial audit of the Nova Scotia Firefighter School shows appalling results of a lack of safety, seriousness, and planning, according to the government. The comprehensive money for value audit details several failures of the school to keep students safe and to run the organization, giving firefighters a good foundation for their careers. The audit included more than 680 firefighters from across the province, 52 fire service leaders, and 8 members of the board of directors. Some of the issues found include systemic and governance issues, a breakdown in safety, accountability, lack of stakeholder engagement, inadequate governance and oversight of the executive director, eroded public trust, and loss of confidence of firefighters. So damning and scathing, to say the very least, and we will follow up on this in the days to come for sure. This important story. In the meantime, what is on your mind today? The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Before I go back to the phones, an email. This one from Tim says, you often refer to an inadequate transit system. The problems are in peak rush hour because of too many cars due to our car culture. Too many think it's beneath them to bus. Think of school days and people driving their kids. An LRT system from the valley is vital. Light rail transit system from the valley is vital for the long term, but far too many would still drive cars. That comes from Tim. And I'm not sure if it's if it's a sense of entitlement or a culture as it's a sense of necessity, because transit is unreliable, and this is the problem, and this is the challenge. How do you convince people to use a transit system which is unreliable? I wouldn't, personally. And why would you? And until that's dealt with, and how do you fix that? I don't know. I don't know how do you fix transit? To me, this would be, again, worthy of much more of our conversation and our dollars and investment than talking about bike lanes endlessly. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Let's talk to Jim. Jim, hello.
How you doing, Todd?
I'm well, you?
Not too bad on this beautiful Tuesday.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm anxiously waiting to see what council does. I don't know if they're in camera sessions specifically for the bicycle issue, but I've been dead against in camera sessions completely. I don't even think they should form part of the agenda with council. They should have separate meetings for those because the public has a right to know, and transparency has been somewhat mild when it comes to all the councils since I've been around in this city. So I don't know what they're discussing in camera, but certainly the in-camera meetings take up a lot of time of council time, which they could be resolving some of these issues. So I think if the mayor does get any, and I don't know whether he's going to get any big powers, but one thing I think the mayor should concentrate on is saying, look, the camera sessions in camera, we'll do that, but we won't do it on council day. I mean, the council has to get the business done. And this bike lane stuff is just build the bridge and get over. We got stronger things, like I've said before. Transit is right up there with housing, and our 10 cities. So I think that if it comes back today that the CAO recommends to council, I'd like to know why that was done by the CAO. Well, why all of a sudden the enlightenment? And is it because there's a threat hanging over by the province? Now, I'm in favor of the province having the ability to step into a municipality, but I think, in my personal opinion, is that we should be very careful with that. I'm all for getting some more so-called powers with the mayor insofar as presenting his own budget and what have you, but I think the debate should have taken place between council. Maybe it did. I don't remember that much about that because it was in and out. But, the mayor should have sat down. I think he did sit down and try to convince council that he needed more powers. I'm not so sure. Maybe you can remind me of that. But there should have been active debate among themselves. And then when they decided that, no, we don't want you to have powers, then the mayor could make his pitch to the province himself and see what happens from there. But we don't want the province stepping in on every little thing that comes up. That's a little bit too much for me. I mean, we have municipalities, let them do their thing. Step in, but justify why you're stepping in. But in camera is a no-no on council day. It should be.
Well, I take your point, but look, when it comes to this whole issue, now that it just seems to me that one side doesn't know what the other side is doing. And when it comes to staff, is staff directing council or is council directing staff? And to me, it should be the council direct staff and staffs can recommend, obviously, but it just seems to me that staff has had far too much sway or say in this municipality for far too long, and I think that's part of the challenge. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think you're. I'll go along with you to an extent, but I mean, the way I know council works is that council gets or requests staff reports.
Yeah.
We all know that, and then council comes back with their so-called expertise that they pay a lot of money for some of those people down there to do these things, and then come back and say, well, you guys decide. Here's what we think you can do or should do. Now you guys decide. That's the way it's supposed to work. Then you guys decide.
Yeah, but for staff out of the blue on Friday to tell council like to recommend that they don't do this Morris Street thing, it just seems to me that it's not a good look. Jim, is what I'm getting at.
I don't know if you speak French. My wife is French, but fishy foo. That's what fishy foo means. Something's up more than that.
Yeah.
And the mayor, I like to be a fly on the wall down the Province House this morning because he's probably sitting there thinking, well, what are they going to do? I guess they're going to cave in and they're just going to, do what I want them to do, and we'll move on. And then maybe we'll see what the province is going to do. But this whole thing has been really
it's a gong show. It's a gong show, Jim. It's embarrassing, is what it is.
Yeah. That's a good description, the gong show. But so I'll just leave you with that one thing that I certainly think when the mayor gets back and we'll see where he is and what he's going to do. I'm going to write him a letter suggesting that these camera sessions are a joke. I mean, there's no reason why. I mean, other than personnel, where you're bringing up staff names and people that are going to get fired or whatever, the in-camera sessions, they should be a separate session because council only has so much time. They've even cut it back under Savage, I think, if not before, about every 2 weeks. That's way too far. Council should be meeting every Tuesday or once a week at least. We got so much going on there, and they're just these camera sessions. They take up most of the council day, and it's just avoiding transparency to the public.
Okay, Jim. Appreciate the call.
Yeah. Take care.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. David, hello.
Hi, Todd. Yeah, I just want to talk about bike lanes. And I mean, the question of bike lanes, whether they're good or bad, is sort of one thing. But I think the other is just how it's rolled out. A good example is the Bloomfield Community Christmas tree at the corner of Agricola and Almond. So anyone familiar with it, it's just a pine tree right at the corner there. And every year we decorate it with lights. And it was the first solar-powered community Christmas tree in Nova Scotia. And it just looks really nice. And it's kind of a source of pride that, hey, look, our own little neighborhood's got its own town tree. And, it's great because growing up, every town had its own sort of Christmas tree and stuff like that. But basically, we were given 2 days notice before the bike lane was put in. I tried desperately to sort of contact my counselor, who is sort of missing in action, tried to contact the supervisors responsible for the project, wouldn't get back to me or anything like that. Eventually, I was able to get through to the chair of the Standing Transportation Committee, which was Pam Lovelace, and she sort of got the ball rolling a little bit, I suppose, if you call it that. So anyway, the word came back that, we're going to do it with, care and respect for the tree. But basically what happened, the planter box that the tree was in is already too small. They cut that box in half, essentially, took out the roots of half the tree, so half the tree basically died. They had an excavator in to remove all the old planking, benches, and seating and stuff like that, because I guess, the contractor is just too tired, too lazy to just do it by hand. So they broke a bunch of branches and stuff like that. Then they left basically the root ball exposed for an entire month during August, so the tree just dried out incredibly. But then the worst part is knowing that they probably killed the tree anyway. They spent thousands of dollars rebuilding a much smaller planter box around the tree, and then also putting in new trees right next to the tree that they killed, that sort of, the tree that they killed having, significance to the community and stuff. But the most frustrating part is if you go there now, all it would have taken was just basically a few degrees tweak of the sidewalk. Just shift the course of the sidewalk a few degrees. You would have missed the tree entirely. Everything would have been fine. We'd still have our town tree. We'd still have a nice seating area for people and all of that. So it's just sort of, the blithe disregard and just sort of, it's almost like teenage vandalism, where it's just like, hey, can you believe what we're getting away with and the things we're able to do? I'm sure that's, just sort of fantasy on my part, but it's just sort of hard to escape those kind of feelings. But it's just like, why wouldn't you listen? And why not just make that small, simple change? Like, I'm not an unreasonable guy. I wasn't against the bike lane. I wasn't militant or anything like that. I was just like, please, just look at this, look at this, look at this. Just, making a legitimate, fair sort of request. And that is just sort of, inadmissible, I suppose. So it's very frustrating, and I don't know what the solution is, but we really just need to do better. I mean, we are supposedly living in a democracy where, the voice of the community does matter, because the people in the community are the ones at the ground level and see what's going on and can maybe help to make things better. You know what I mean? And then everybody can be happy. Why not? At least try, but Anyway, that's all my thoughts.
Okay, David, thanks for the call.
Appreciate it.
All
Thank
right,
you.
take care at 902-405-6000. Again, what I'm hearing from a lot of people is frustration, right? I think that frustration is, and not just from the public, from council as well. Everybody's frustrated with this, including the premier. Everybody's frustrated with this, but at some point, we need to get over the frustration, and we need to get some direction on this, and we need to get some clarity on this, and we need to get some policy that makes sense on this. And just simply forging ahead. Look, again, this came out of nowhere on Friday afternoon. Staff suggests to council that they rescind this motion about Morris Street. And now they're going to backtrack on this, likely. My guess would be that they will, because, look, not only staff has made this recommendation, but the premier has said that he will step in if necessary. So it's just dysfunctional, folks. It's just a dysfunctional situation which we now are in, and the brand of council is impacted by this, in my opinion. And it makes you wonder, what about the bigger issues? How about things like Windsor Street Exchange and other large, massive issues, like a stadium potentially? My gosh, how would they ever get a stadium built if you can't even get bike lanes straightened out? 902-405-6000. Give us a call. What's on your mind? Again, 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Carlos says this via email. Says, I agree that if a similar attention and resources were placed in improving transit as to promotion of cycling lanes, we would be much further ahead in providing alternatives that would reduce congestion and improve city livability. More cycling lanes would remove some vehicles from the road. However, it pales in comparison to the impact better transit can have on vehicle use and congestion. I suspect that many would consider cycling. I suspect that many who would consider cycling to work would also consider using a more reliable and available transit system. Again, I think it's a no-brainer that when it comes to if we really want to deal with congestion and getting people moving around the city, I think that putting your resources and your effort, and whether it be whatever it is, policy, transit is a much better use of our time and our money than bike lanes, I think, personally, because far more people can take advantage of a good, fulsome transit system than bicycles. I'm not saying that you can't do both or whatever, but if you're going to have a priority, we should be spending all this time we could be spending on improving transit. And action items should be in place. How do we fix and improve transit? Because to me, that has the potential to improve and impact a lot more people's lives than biking would. I think it's a no-brainer. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. James is giving us a call. Hello, James.
Hi. Coincidentally, I'm about to violently agree with you. Transit. When you look at the cost-benefit analysis of the one thing everyone can agree on, in my humble opinion, is congestion is bad. And obviously in the winter, you can't ride your bike to work in January kind of thing. So there's a lot of agreement about the problem, but now we need to move on to the solution. And the least cost, most acceptable solution, and as you just sort of eloquently stated, would be to improve the reliability and frequency of public transit. And we don't necessarily have to go for expensive ferries, and we just need to do a proper master plan, the whole Windsor Street Exchange thing. We just got to get some smart people, and I hate to say it, but Andy Fillmore likes to brag about how he was in charge of planning for HRM. But anyway, we need to get some smart people doing a proper public transit plan. In Toronto, cabinet ministers and CEOs take public transit to work. It's not frowned upon. It's not that, quote, car culture. Hopefully we can get to that point in Halifax.
Well, it needs to be reliable. First off, James, in my opinion, and that is the very first thing that we need to do is get it more reliable. And I know that no system is perfect. I get that, but clearly we need to put some resources into making it reliable in order to incentivize people to use it. That makes sense. I think you'd agree with that, right?
I'm 100% in agreement. I do not own a car, and I am a very frequent user of public transit. So I agree. If you gotta, especially for, people with jobs, and I'm retired, but people with jobs, and it's got to be reliable, like it is in quote Toronto or wherever.
Yeah.
That you can just say, okay, I'm going to get to work on time. And so I think the geniuses, and this is somewhere where the province and the municipality, I hope, could cooperate. Let's do a proper public transit plan for Halifax for the next, pick your number, 10 or 20 years. Anyway,
okay, thanks, James.
Just trying to be solution oriented instead of just complaining about
for sure
everything.
You got wrong. It. Thanks for the call. 902-405-6000. Darlene, hello.
Hi, I just wanted to add my voice on this bike lane issue, and it's incredibly frustrating. I thought when we had the municipal election that a few new voices or perspectives at the table might kind of change the way this council operates. And it's like they're entirely sheep. If you just start off with the fact that the bike lane project is at $93 million, 70 million over budget, and that they still voted to proceed without a sober second thought. The fact that our city looks a mess. I mean, these have to be the stupidest bike lane systems I've ever seen. If you go to Europe at all, you see how they utilize one sidewalk, and there's so many options. So the bike lane system doesn't make any sense at all. You're randomly on a side street and you see these metal posts sticking up out of the ground. But besides that, the money alone that they're spending on these things, and that this is the focus for this city with all the issues that we have, and that the conversation is around this mess of bike lanes, and this is the best this council can do. Now, the fact that this is happening because we have no leadership. You can't lead by committee and by consensus. We need leadership in this city, and it's run on its own for the last number of years. So the fact that we may get, the mayor may have some extra power, I think is a good thing. It's unfortunate it's gotten to this, but that's because we have a system that it's not working for the people. You could remove the council. The city could run better by itself. It's really laughable. And this is the conversation. And next time you get them on, Todd, please ask them about the 3% climate tax that we're all paying now. Yeah. When you ask the councillors, when you ask them what they're doing, they say there's plans in the works. They talk about heat pumps, that there's already a federal and provincial program. So we're being taxed as if Halifax could make a big difference on emissions. Mm-hmm. What we could do is maybe have an education program to encourage people to walk, to encourage, less cars in the downtown. You could do things, but at the very least, I hope if the mayor gets his powers, he reduces that climate tax right away. I'd like to see it gone because they don't even know what they're doing with it other than bike lanes, down to 1%, and do something practical that helps people. Anyway, I just had to, every day I hear you talking about bike lanes, I swear I'm going to get...
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Darlene.
I'm driving in a car. Anyway, have a great day.
All right. Thanks for the call. Bye-bye. Appreciate it. Thanks for the calls, everybody. We'll open the phone lines again tomorrow between 11 and 12. RCMP say they've addressed failures that were identified in the mass killing inquiry. Melania's responded to all the issued directions. We'll talk about this with Paul Palango when we come back. All right, I saw this story in the Chronicle Herald recently. Nova Scotia RCMP say they've addressed the system flaws and labor code violations identified in its response to the mass killing rampage in the province in April of 2020. Here's a quote from the strategic communications lead. It says the RCMP have responded to all the issued directions and assurance of the voluntary compliance. The story goes on to say the directions and assurance of voluntary compliance with Canada Labour Code contravention stemmed from a workplace investigation by Lorna McMillan initiated in April 2020 into the incidents of April 18th and 19th, 2020 that resulted in the death of Constable Heidi Stevenson and injuries to Constable Chad Morrison. All right, so Paul Palango joins us to talk about all this. He's written a book about, 2 books about the mass murders, of course, and has been a long, I suppose, how would we describe your relationship with the RCMP, Paul?
Educated observer.
All right, reading this story, and to me, what came across my mind is that it's like everything else with this. It's convoluted and it's confusing. And I don't know if it's just the way the story was written, or if the lead was buried, or what. But what's your takeaway from this story?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I think this should be seen in the context of the recent story about the police review from Deloitte Touche and the recommendation that the RCMP take over all policing in Nova Scotia. And now a couple of weeks later, this story emerges, and you have to look at, well, this report by the Economic Social Development Canada, which basically enforces the Labour Code, was done in March 2022. Something like that. And now 3 years later, we have a spokesperson for the RCMP, their chief spin doctor, coming out telling us, the RCMP has responded to all the issued directions and assurances of voluntary compliance. Well, what does that really say, Todd?
Right.
They responded to it. And I can go back and show you after Moncton, same language. We responded to it. After Mayerthorpe, we responded to it. After Auditor General reports complaining about the lack of federal policing, we responded to it or addressing it. Going back 30, 40 years, this is the RCMP tactic. They say they're responding, but they don't do anything. Like on our podcast the other night, Dispersing the Fog with Adam Rogers, one of our guests was former Deputy Commissioner Kurt Allen, and who's just left active policing with Halton Regional Police a couple of weeks ago. And he said he has no faith in the RCMP adopting anything. He says that's what they said after Mayerthorpe. That's what they said after Moncton. He said this is absolutely disturbing what has gone on in Nova Scotia and what continues to go on. And this is from a guy who was interviewed twice to be commissioner of the RCMP. So I'm not making this stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can go listen to for yourself what he's saying. This is a serious problem because they don't do what they say they're going to do.
So why do they get a pass then from so many, including the governing body and their government of the day? Why is nobody calling into question some of these claims? I mean, it just seems to me that outside of this interview and your podcast, that this gets a pass.
Oh, absolutely. It's like Kurt Allen said it well on the podcast the other night. He said that in Nova Scotia in particular, there's a tendency to kick things down the road, not deal with the issues. And you're seeing that right now. In spite of a movement across Canada to get the RCMP out of contract policing 7 years from now when the contract comes up, Nova Scotia is there saying, oh, no, the RCMP is here to stay. Like, based on what evidence? I mean, and the media is not jumping on the story. I mean, the flaws in the Mass Casualty Commission report, which I detailed in, Anatomy of a Cover-Up, are profound. I mean, we don't know who killed Corey Ellison because the story they told is not true. But there's no outrage here to look at that. I mean, in this report from that we're talking about now, one of the issues was Heidi Stevenson. Mm-hmm. Heidi Stevenson being the RCMP constable killed at Shubenacadie, who was the 20th victim of Wortman. It doesn't get into any details about how bad the situation was for her and how she was a victim of her own force. The RCMP made up a story that she was in a gunfight with Wortman. That didn't happen. Yet there's no outrage in the community or among politicians to deal with this, and rather we're saying, oh, let's let the RCMP continue policing. This is ridiculous.
Why do you say it didn't happen?
I show in the book there's 27 witnesses to that scene who did not see her get out of her car, and plus there was a document from the then acting director of CERT, Pat Curran, former judge, who rejected an RCMP request that they investigate the possible shooting that Heidi Stevenson may have accidentally killed Joey Weber. They made up this story. And Curran told him, hit the road. You already told me she was executed 2 days before. I think that's pretty good evidence it didn't happen. All the witnesses plus Pat Curran and the lack of forensics proving the case.
Okay, so when it comes to what happens next here with this, I suppose, and again, it just seems to me that the story was I can't remember what page it was in the Chronicle Herald, but certainly not front page news, and nobody else ran it. So you would think that all things surrounding the mass casualty or the mass killing inquiry and the RCMP and follow-up, that this should be a high priority for public safety and for public discourse. Why is it not?
Well, the other day I ran into someone in Chester who was active in politics and things, and they asked me, how's your book doing? And I said, oh, well, it was number one on Toronto Star and other lists across the country. And the person said to me, well, I don't really know much about that story. It's like this attitude of putting their heads in the sands, not paying attention to what's going on. And the politicians basically do this. They've damped down enthusiasm and interest in the story because not one politician has ever asked a question about it. I recently raised the issue of the head of police services in the public safety ministry, the person pushing for the RCMP. Well, her husband works for the RCMP, and she worked for the RCMP. As Kurt Allen said the other day, that's a perceived conflict of interest, but you can't get anyone to even report on it. I mean, this is how bad the situation is, that the RCMP controls the debate, and then they've used all this information like this report. Oh, we've complied, but we know from history they don't comply. Mm-hmm. And they've turned around the argument to make it look like all the police forces are bad in Nova Scotia, and therefore we should take them over. It's like a Donald Trump type of argument. The municipal police forces in Nova Scotia do a credible job at what they're doing. And the real problem is the way policing is organized in Nova Scotia, to the detriment of the municipal police forces. Because you have, the RCMP has 53 detachments in Nova Scotia. All these little small, minuscule detachments don't make sense. There should be large regional police forces where the police can gather numbers and expertise and take some of this control away from the RCMP because they're not doing the job. And the proof is in the pudding, basically. You can see it. And the last point on this, I've raised the issue, who shot Corey Ellison? Because the evidence indicates that Wortman likely was not there, based on the RCMP and the MCC's evidence. It appears he was accidentally shot by the RCMP. Is anyone taking up this story? It's an important story because the forensic evidence doesn't fit their story.
Okay, so I guess if in fact we're at the point now where there seems to be indifference, I would say, at best in the province when it comes to this whole. Perhaps there's just fatigue about this mass casualty commission. Maybe people are just. I don't know what's going on. Like, is there mass indifference going on here?
Well, it was orchestrated. You go back to the Noam Chomsky, Edward S. Herman book, Manufacturing Consent. Well, what the government and the media managed to do after the mass casualties is to make it a boring story. We're not going to name the shooter. We're not going to name his girlfriend. The mass casualty commission was organized in such a way that it put people to sleep. It waited 3 years before it put out its, 3 years from the time of the event to put out its report. The report was dull and confusing. people lost interest. And they were manipulated into losing interest. They shouldn't have lost interest. This was the worst event in policing in Canadian history. And the RCMP has turned that pig's ear into a silk purse, because they're saying, oh, well, it was a terrible event, but all the police force are to blame. Now put us in charge and we'll make things better. And people are going, yeah, it's the RCMP. We'll go along with them. They know what they're doing. They won't be dishonest. We have a whole history, like Todd. It's not just me saying this. I'm a spokesman basically for all the researches, independent research that's been done over the last 20 to 30 years showing this force is in disarray, is unsustainable, and can't be trusted. And they're all being ignored because it's inconvenient for the government to actually sit down and do some hard thinking and hard work to modernize policing in an effective way that's going to serve the interests of Nova Scotians in the future, instead of going back to something in the past. I mean, we need something better than the RCMP spinning its back hooves in the mud while telling us it's moving forward at warp speed. It's that simple.
Oh. Okay, Paul, appreciate your time as always. Thanks.
Anytime. Who killed Corey Ellison? See
All
ya.
right, take care. Paul Palango, author of 2 books on the mass murders. Souls Harbour in Bridgewater triples capacity and opens to women's affordable housing. We'll get to this when we come back.
Facts.
Michelle Porter, CEO of Souls Harbour Rescue Mission, joined us for a chat. Michelle, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, so Souls Harbour Rescue Mission, you're in how many locations now?
Well, we are in 14 locations.
Wow, that's and where did it all start?
Well, it all started in Halifax at our Kennard Street location, which is still in operation, and it's our biggest drop-in center.
Okay, and how long have you been at it?
Oh, wow. Ken and I started Souls Harbour in 2010.
All right, and tell us about your most recent opening in Bridgewater, or expansion.
Right. So our first expansion was Bridgewater 14 years ago. And I'm saying that wrong. 14 years ago, we opened Halifax. Mm-hmm. And 14 years later, Bridgewater becomes our 14th location, which is kind of neat. Bridgewater's always been special because it was the first satellite that we opened.
Okay, and what services do you offer?
So what we offer in Bridgewater is pretty much what we offer across the board. So we've got our drop-in center where people can come in every day for a hot meal, company visiting, and then we have our Free Mart, which is kind of like our thrift store, Mission Mart, but it's all for free. And what this expansion in Bridgewater did for us was allow us to have a full Free Mart on the South Shore, which we're really excited about. And then, of course, we have our Forward House, which is a bedroom for 3 women.
Okay, and who tell us who's eligible to stay there?
So it's affordable shared housing. So it's one house with 3 bedrooms. So everyone gets their own bedroom with a lock and key, and then they can share meals. They have a shared common space, place to work for homework, shared washroom. So who can come there? Anybody who just isn't able to afford to live in the prices of homes that are out there today. We're hoping that someone in Bridgewater will be empowered to stay in their town because of this new building that we have.
Yeah, I would think there's no shortage of need out there. The need is great, right?
The need is so great. It doesn't matter what town we go to. Someone says, could you please come to our town? We have so much need, and that definitely is how it's bearing out.
How do you make this all happen? What's the funding model?
Well, we were really fortunate in Bridgewater to have 3 foundations come and give us large chunks of money in order to do that. We had previously purchased the house next door. We got a mortgage on that. We got it paid off, and then we got renovation money. So we're really blessed to be able to do this.
Okay, and tell us about all the volunteers that work with your organization.
Oh, my goodness. We have probably 2,000 or more volunteers who regularly work at one of our 14 locations, including our thrift store. But and Bridgewater itself, we had a big grand reopening, and we invited all the Bridgewater volunteers as well as some of the larger donors who really made that place happen. And it was amazing. It was so beautiful.
Oh, for sure. Okay. And if people want to donate or they want to contribute or they want to volunteer, give everybody direction as to where they can do all that.
Right. Always we can use more volunteers no matter where you are, whether it's Amherst, Cape Breton, Bridgewater, Truro, Halifax. So you just go to our website, soulsharbour.ca. You can donate there or you can donate your time there. And it's all very simple. There's even a map that shows you where in the province you would like to be participating.
Okay, Michelle, congratulations on all this and your continued hard work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, take care. Michelle Porter, CEO of Souls Harbour Rescue Mission. They're doing great work for sure. A couple of quick stories. This one, almost 750 wildfires are burning across Canada. The Canadian Forest Fire Centre says many are in Manitoba, where some 4,000 residents of a northern First Nation community have had to evacuate. The Cree Nation near Nelson House issued a mandatory evacuation order over the long weekend. Its flames threaten to cut off road access and muddied air quality. Smoke from the fires is filling Canadian skies from Vancouver Island to Toronto to Charlottetown, and it's hazy here in HRM as well, for sure. Canada's Ministers of Finance and Foreign Affairs are in Mexico to talk economic growth, trade, and security with President Claudia Sheinbaum. Their trip is happening ahead of Prime Minister Mark Carney's planned visit to the Latin American country to meet Sheinbaum. The United States hit Canada last week with a 35% tariff on goods not compliant with Canada-U.S.-Mexico trade agreement, while Mexico got a 90-day reprieve from higher levies. The agreement is scheduled for a mandatory review next year. And this story, a roughly week-long strike mandate vote for Air Canada flight attendants closes today. The union representing more than 10,000 flight attendants concluded the conciliation process without a deal. The contract talks began at the start of the year with pay, unpaid work, and pensions among the key issues. Air Canada has warned the vote does not mean a disruption will happen. It notes that a potential strike can't take place until a 21-day cooling off period following the 60-day conciliation period. So another labor unrest which could impact the public for sure, and we'll keep a close eye on that. This story, the Halifax Fashion Week goes August 10th to the 17th. We'll discuss this when we come back. Bringing together fashion, culture, wellness, and innovation. The MILLS Halifax Fashion Week 2025 goes August 10th to the 17th. Joining me here in studio are a couple of guests. Solitha Shortte is the founder and CEO of Soli Productions Management. Soli, welcome to the show as always.
Thank you for having me back, Todd.
Indeed, and Caitlin Coo is a designer here in Halifax and brought along a guest as well, right? Okay.
This year, and she's 2.5, so she can barely walk, but
okay.
She's got this.
Vanessa, do we have anything on that mic? Okay. All right. Try this mic here. Grab that mic here.
Is this one better?
Oh, we'll see. Try it out. All right. Try this one over here.
Okay. Is this one better?
No, we don't have you on either.
Oh, I've just disappeared.
All right. Soli.
We could share the mic. We share the mic. This is what we do here at the mill.
We're just gonna keep
yes,
going
Nova
down.
Scotia. We are about taking care of each other, so we'll share the mic.
All right, my apologies. Okay, so Solitha, give everybody the details on this, if you will, first of all.
So for the MILLS Halifax Fashion Week, we're in our 4th year under the name. And well, the 2nd year under the name, but the 4th year we've been doing the Halifax Fashion Week. This year we have an exciting lineup of designers that are both from Nova Scotia, and we have a designer coming in from Paris to showcase on opening night. Designer Caitlin Coo is here for Kate and Ivy, and she's showcasing on August 14th at the Marquee here in the North End on Gottingen Street.
Okay, and tell us about fashion and design in general, and how it's grown here in Halifax.
It is taking off, and we are just excited for the growth that we're seeing in the region, and again, the support from everybody around. This year, we wanted to focus heavily on sustainability in fashion and ensuring that, we are conscious with our impact on the environment and how the designers are producing and how we are producing our shows as well. So there's a mixture. There's a mixture of everything this year, and we invite the public to come out and enjoy what belongs to us here in the Atlantic region.
Okay, Caitlin, what's it like to be part of this?
Oh, Soli and I go way back, so this is just so exciting. We've done a few shows together now, but this show there's an excitement about this show that is near and dear to almost everybody who's working on this at Hearts, and it just, you can feel that it is going to be a good one. And I know that for my lineup, I have the most Filipino models I've ever had in my entire life, which is very near and dear to me and very exciting for the community as well.
Yeah, Soli, what's it like to see local designers have this platform?
It's amazing. It's amazing to see who we have here shine in the way that they are shining through the MILLS Halifax Fashion Week. They don't have to go away. They don't have to leave Nova Scotia to be celebrated, and that's what I love about this region. And I'm just excited for them as they take their brands to the next level and take Nova Scotia along with them for the ride.
All right, and tell us about some of the partners and volunteers and everybody that makes it all happen.
Yeah, this would not be possible without our partners at the Lighthouse Arts Center, Westwood Development, the MILLS residents. Like, these two organizations came on and just took what we were doing here at the House of Soli to the next level, and it's attracted sponsors from all industries in Nova Scotia, and a real shout out to them and the volunteers that are working tirelessly, our makeup, our photography, the models. It's truly a Nova Scotia thing. It's an Atlantic region blowout. It's a blowout of all of us just doing and coming together to build an industry that we so dearly love. And like Caitlin said, the energy is different this year. The designs are just blowing up and blowing out. The color, the culture, everything that makes Nova Scotia this beautiful melting pot will be on the runway August 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th. I do want to touch on August 10th. We kick off with our Mental Health Day at Crystal Crescent Beach, which again is special to the MILLS Halifax Fashion Week. No other fashion week does this, but we want to make sure we take care of mind, body, and soul first as we then celebrate the creativity that makes us who we are. And our networking night down at the Mercantile Social. Come out, meet the designers, meet the models, and all the creatives that are doing this. The tickets are on Eventbrite and the Lighthouse Arts Center.
Yeah, and who do you? I suppose you want everybody to go, but who is the typical, I guess, demographic of people who attend to this event?
When it comes to age, there's no specific. I think if you love fashion, that's the market we are targeting, and that spans from 2 years old to 92 and older. So if you are someone who consumes fashion, loves styling, this is the fashion week for you. It's very inclusive. We have the range from age to height to body size to cultures. It is so different. It is so beautiful. And the thing that sets that apart is talent. They bring the talent to the runway. So you're not just getting them show up because we want to check boxes. They're showing up with the talent that was given to them. And we're excited to have this platform.
Okay. All right. Again, sorry about the mic situation, folks. We're a little disjointed, but that's live radio, right? That is what it is.
We love it. We shift and move, Caitlin.
It's all good. We work with what we've got, and we make it.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. So how do people know if they wanted to get all the details? Direct them to do so online, if you will, please.
They can head over to the MILLS Halifax Fashion Week IG account and the Soli Production IG. They can contact me at 902-402-4555. That's our business account. And the Lighthouse Arts Center ticket link has access to all of the event that they can just click and reserve their seats.
Okay, thanks to both of you for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, have a great one. And that is the MILLS Halifax Fashion Week goes August 10th to the 17th. We'll be right back.
Facts.
Reminder, if you want to send me some emails, please do so at todd.vino@rci.rogers.com. Again, todd.vino@rci.rogers.com. That is the way to send me emails, and I appreciate all the emails that I get. I do read them all and try and respond to them if I get a chance. Not always do I get the opportunity to respond to them, but I do read them all, and I appreciate it very much, folks. Again, todd.vino@rci.rogers.com. That is the way to reach us via email. All right. Harold Davis is the president of the Persian Gulf Veterans of Canada and joins us for a chat. Harold, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for having me, Todd.
All right. So tell us about your organization, the Persian Gulf Vets. Tell us more about this group.
Well, Persian Gulf Veterans, there's about roughly 4,500 of us across Canada. We served in the Persian Gulf War. We left Halifax around the 24th of August, 1990, and came back in April after the Gulf War. And since then, we've been trying to get our government to recognize this as war veterans. And no, they just doesn't seem to want to be able to do that. And we've been fighting them now for over 10 years.
Okay, and what, if in fact they did recognize that, what does that mean for your group of vets?
Well, a couple of things you got to look at. One is mental health, because our vets, we got some vets that doesn't even want to wear their medals because they said, my own country don't recognize me. The health conditions that were over there, Gulf War illness is recognized by most countries that coalition countries that were in the war, but Canada does not recognize it. It did recognize it for the first few years, and then all of a sudden they just said, nope, we're done, everybody go home. And then when it comes to the pension type thing, depending on what the claim would fall under the Pension Act, which puts us in a different category than the Well-Being Act. And it could help out veterans that are in a little bit more need than some other veterans. It would guarantee us a bed in the veterans hospitals, where right now we're not guaranteed anything from Veterans Affairs because we're classed under the Well-Being Act, and they don't get involved with the Pension Act pretty well.
Okay, what you mentioned an illness that's been known to kind of be predominant from this. Tell me more about that.
Well, after we came back, a lot of veterans started having different conditions that affected them. Health rashes, stomach problems, fatigue. Some even got diabetes, PTSD, and the whole collage of these illnesses. The illness was classified. The Americans still run it under Gulf War illness, and they've got all kinds of stuff going on there. But our Veterans Affairs, they don't want to classify it as Gulf War illness. We'll treat the individual things. Well, the individual things are hard to prove. When you put them all together, you come out with Gulf War illness, which is studies have been done across the U.S. and England and Australia and other countries, but Canada refuses to look at Gulf War illness anymore. They did have a complete wing in a medical hospital in Ottawa back in the mid-90s treating Persian Gulf veterans of Gulf War illness. And then one day the doc came in and just shut it down and said, we're done. We don't believe in it anymore. Have a great day.
All right, tell us about promises that have been made in the past by previous government, and what about this current government?
Well, the current government put us in their election platform, just like the Conservatives and the Liberals, and that Persian Gulf veterans would be recognized for their service in the Gulf. They did that without consultation whatsoever with Persian Gulf Veterans of Canada. They put us in there, and we thought, okay, great, this is going to go in a good direction. Well, guess what? You're elected. D&D won't take any request for a meeting. Veterans Affairs Minister has done the exact same thing. They don't want to talk to us about any meetings to deal with this. The ACFA committee, we held hearings last year before the election. They turned around and said Gulf War, the report 18 pops out as Gulf War was really a war. And they gave recommendations to D&D and BAC. They still, the government at the time, then they call the election, but the new Veterans Affairs Committee, they have turned around and adopted the old one as their very first order of business and sent a letter to D&D and said, what about the recommendations? And to date, nothing. I sent an email to D&D just prior to the election, and they basically come out and said we don't have to do anything unless it's voted on in the House. So have a great day.
All right, and tell us about the personal experience that this must and what this is like personally. Share some examples, I guess, of testimonials of people who are impacted by this, who feel as though that they've been forgotten.
Well, okay, you probably remember when back in 1990 when the Navy left Halifax. It was the city closed down that day. We went out of that harbor with a flotilla of cheers and everything else, just like the Korean War veterans when they sent their first ship off. So we go over there, we do what we need to do, we travel in minefields, we get shot at on our air bases with Scud missiles. Our fighters drop bombs over there towards the end of the war. Mm-hmm. We went in and helped save U.S. Navy ships that hit mines in the minefield. We purposely went into a freaking minefield. Yeah. And then we get out and we suck in all of that oil fields that were burning. I mean, I remember taking one of the COVID-type masks off my face during flight operations and wringing it out with my hand. That's all we had for protective gear. Mm-hmm. Breathing that the oil stuff. We had to get shots for different stuff that nobody really, they're not understanding it quite a bit. Nobody wants to talk about it. Veterans Affairs guys in the research department don't even talk about it. But I mean, we came home to a big fanfare on the 7th of April, 1991. And then on the 8th of April, 1991, Persian Gulf War, Persian Gulf veterans were forgotten. And that's the way it's been. Our names and our war are not on any cenotaphs. They refuse to put our war on the National War Memorial in Ottawa. Mm-hmm. There are a couple around that has it. Fairview Legion out there has a memorial. They have Persian Gulf on it. They're in Halifax. Mm-hmm. And it's just the recognition portion is really stressful for guys that spent that time over there and did the war. And we're totally forgotten. They made one by Tamaj Entertainment documentary for Persian Gulf, mm-hmm. and that's it. And they can't even get it on a national TV station, won't air it.
Harold, I guess you could only speculate as to why, but might it be that if the government recognizes it, that they might be responsible financially, or what's going on here? What's the speculation?
I think the speculation is finances. They may have to pay out more money, but you know what? This is almost 35 years later. Veterans have already put their claims in. The claims have been adjudicated. Everybody is all happy with all that. Now, if you put a claim in today and it's related to the Persian Gulf, then it would maybe, if we were war veterans, fall under the Pension Act. But that's something that would end up having to be worked out if they turned around and said we're war veterans. So to me, they just don't want to. Korean war veterans went through the same thing when they came back from Korea. And it took them 28 years to get their proper recognition. And here we are at 35, and we're still fighting. Afghan veterans are not classified as war veterans either, just so you know that. They're classified just like we are, special duty area veterans.
And of course, and peacekeeping. There's been a lot of conversation about peacekeeping and the role that peacekeepers have kept as well. And I'm sure many of your members were peacekeepers as well.
Many of our members they've done multiple tours across the world after Persian Gulf, Yugoslavia, Libya, everywhere. And they understand what's going on there. But for us, Persian Gulf veterans, they just can't comprehend how come we're not classified as we're war veterans when the actual federal government, when they speak about the Persian Gulf, they speak about the Persian Gulf War. Yeah. Right? They don't say it as a mission. You go onto their webpage and you'll see Persian Gulf War. The medal that the government gave us, the Gulf Kuwait medal with bar, and the bar denotes right in the honors and awards, served during the actual Persian Gulf War. So everybody calls it a war, but they don't want to give us the credit and the recognition for serving in a war. Kuwait turned around back in the mid-'90s, gave us a medal that for thanking us for helping liberate that country. And the Governor General's office says, no, you're not allowed to wear that. They classified it as a campaign medal, but yet the medal time spans almost 3 years, and the war was over in 46 days.
So what would you like people listening right now to do?
I would like Canada and the Canadians to stand up and tell their politicians, these guys served in a war, and they should be recognized for their service. Just like Afghan vets should be recognized for their service in a war. We should also be recognized the same way, but nobody's standing up. I go to Ottawa and I meet with 40 or 50 MPs, senators during Remembrance Week every year, and I get the same thing when I sit down in their office. This should be a no-brainer. Well, it might be a no-brainer for some people, but as soon as I walk out of the office, that's the end of the conversation. Right? So I would like people to turn around and talk to their politicians and support what we're trying to do. I mean, I can barely get anybody in the Halifax CTV news and stuff. Heidi from Global did one article on us. I got another article done out in CTV News out in Calgary. But, I mean, as for anything national, no, it doesn't happen that way. And it seems like the media doesn't want to turn around and put it out there. That right now the current government is not living up to what they have put in their platform for veterans. And they won't even talk to us. The PMO's office won't answer any of my emails except for, we passed it on to D&D and BAC. Well, D&D and BAC are not speaking to me. So, I'm getting the shuffle, right? But that's as far as I've ever gone with the PMO's office, even though yet Prime Minister Carney said it right in his platform. He's the one it's his platform, right? And we would just like Canadians to stand with the Persian Gulf veterans and say, you're doing it wrong to these veterans. It's 35 years. Wake up. Okay,
Harold.
Give them the credit.
Harold, listen, I appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this, and we'll keep in touch.
Hey, thank you very much for having me and letting the people know where we stand and what we're trying to do.
All right, take care. Good luck. Harold Davis, President of the Persian Gulf Veterans of Canada. I'd like to thank Vanessa Vandeness on the other side of the glass at the control board. Doing a fine job, as always. We're back tomorrow at 10 o'clock. See you then.